Greetings, fellow adventurers. I'm Amy, and today I would like to talk to you who feel like you are never enough. It does not matter what you do, you are never there. There is always something missing. Perhaps something is not the way you visualized, and you end up feeling very depressed, like the worst person on earth. Well, Jinwoo also knows that feeling very well, and that's exactly what we're going to explore today. Why do we feel like we are not enough? In which situation this can happen? And what we can do to avoid this feeling in future? Interest? So watch into the end, and if the time is tight, make sure to check out the timestamps on my description. Let's start with real life situations. Jinwoo always felt like he wasn't enough. It was not only because he was known as the weakest hunter, but can you imagine what else he was thinking? He wasn't enough to support his family, he wasn't enough for his comrades to depend on him, and he was barely enough for himself. After all, he would often end up hurt with no rewards, meaning he could barely make money for himself. Not that this was his main goal, because he wanted to support his mom and sister anyway. Now, are you able to recognize all the areas he felt like this? At work, at his relationships, and in a personal level as well. The same applies to me and you. For example, at work, have you ever worked really hard in something and you felt like your efforts were overlooked or undervalued? I bet you end up with that feeling like you don't belong. In relationships, the fear of not being good enough for a partner, friend, or family member can create anxiety and distance, making it hard to connect genuinely with others. Perhaps you think they're too good for you, and your head is full of thoughts like, how can she be with someone like me? Finally, regarding our self-image, the biggest problem is when we compare ourselves with others. Perhaps you look at your friends and you think they have it all figured out. They have a house, a nice job, and a beautiful partner. And it does not matter if I tell you things are not as simple as they seem, you will still think you're far behind. But why do we feel like this? From where this feeling of not being enough comes from? Get ready, because this may be the longest part of the video. If you thought this feeling came only because of the comparison with others as it's what seemed to be happening with Jinwoo, you were wrong. There are 8 major causes of this feeling. First, childhood experience. If you came from an environment where love or praise was based on performance or achievement, you might develop a feeling that you are only good enough when you meet certain standards. People who were raised constantly trying to praise parents or guardians may have a chronic feeling of inadequacy. However, that's not just it. People who are raised being criticized or compared to other family members can also have the same feeling. If you had your emotional needs rejected, or if you lacked attention, you can also internalize the idea you are unworthy of love or attention. Second, traumatic experiences. There are 2 types of traumatic experience that can make you feel like you're not enough. Survivors of abuse can internalize the abuse as a reflection of their own worth, and people who suffer bullying, this can have a lasting impact on someone's self-esteem. This is also something that affected Jinwoo by being treated as a joke in every dungeon when he was weak. Now, third, on a society point of view, we have the high standards set by social media, like the perfect body or life. On the cultural expectation sides, we have like going to a good university, having a nice job, getting married, and having kids. And finally, we also have the consumerism. Basically, these days' culture often promotes the idea that our worth is tied to what we own, like branded clothes or good cars. And even if you don't give enough attention to this kind of stuff, it's common to wonder, would I be better looked at if I dress other kinds of clothes? Fourth, perfectionism and high self-expectations. We can also be our worst enemies. People with perfectionist mindset and people who have a harsh inner critic can drift the belief that you are never doing enough or being enough. This internal voice can make you freeze and lead to self-doubt and low self-esteem. On a relationship dynamic, toxic relationships, whether they're familial, romantic, or platonic, where you are emotionally manipulated or undermined, can reinforce these feelings. The more you internalize this negative message, the more you might believe you are not enough. 6. Life transitions and major setbacks. If you had a significant loss in your life, like you lost your job, the person you loved, or failed in some goal, this can exaggerate the feelings of inadequacy. During these times, you don't only question your worth, but the inability to move past the loss might make you feel stuck or insufficient. 7. Mental health issues. Low self-esteem or conditions like depression and anxiety can also be a big factor. There are a lot of negative thought patterns that can distort your self-perception, and depression specifically makes it difficult for you to see your own strengths, reinforcing the belief that you are not enough. Lastly, comparison and competition. This affected Jinwoo and is possibly what you thought initially. Social comparison and imposter syndrome. While imposter syndrome makes you self-doubt and feel like a fraud despite evidence of your accomplishments, social comparison is the simple habit of comparing yourself to others who seem more successful, attractive, or happy. Well, now that you know all, or almost all possibilities of origin of this feeling, you did the first step to address it and overcome it. So now let's check out some tips that can come in handy on this journey. Now, 10 tips to overcome the "you are not good enough" feeling. First, recognize and challenge negative thoughts. Try to identify the negative thoughts, beliefs, or the possible urges that we just discussed that can be leading you to feel inadequate. Once you have done it, question if they are valid. Are they based on facts? If not, replace them with more balanced and realistic perspectives. Second, practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness you would treat someone else. Remind yourself that if everyone struggles, it's okay to be imperfect. Not only that, but also make sure to forgive yourself. Let go of past mistakes and failures. Learn from them, but don't allow them to hold you back. Third, focus on your strengths. To focus on our strengths, we need to acknowledge our qualities and achievements that we appreciate about us. Reflect on them regularly so you can reinforce a positive self-image. And of course, make sure to celebrate your small wins. Pass it on an objective from your probation period, celebrate. Learn at something new, celebrate. I don't think Jinwoo was very exciting within his celebrations, but he was definitely good in focusing on his strengths. Fourth, set realistic expectations. Of course, life is not only about celebrating. We also need to avoid perfectionism and be okay with doing your best even if it's not perfect. Along the way, you also need to prioritize your self-care. It's that old talk. Ensure you're having enough rest and that you are taking care of your physical and mental well-being. 5. Cultivate gratitude. Something related to our mental well-being is the ability to be grateful. We all need to practice daily gratitude. This does not only change your focus on seeing always what's missing, but it can help you to appreciate your constant progress. This is something that Jinwoo mastered very well. Every time he was facing a big boss, he would remind himself he wasn't that weak person anymore. 6. Surround yourself with supportive people. As we said, one of the reasons of low self-esteem is constant criticism. To avoid that, we need to surround ourselves with good people who don't only highlight the good part about us, but they are also able to give us constructive feedback. You know, that kind of feedback that doesn't make you cry in the end. 7. Do activities that bring you joy. Similar to practicing gratitude, when we do activities that brings us joy, we are taking our mind off what's bothering us. And of course that we also have the same feeling when we volunteer or help others. 8. Seek professional help if needed. I am a huge fan of therapy. I think it helps us a lot to improve and also to keep more calm when things don't always go our way. However, if, for example, you realize that the origin of your feeling is a depression or severe anxiety, make sure to look for a doctor. There is no shame in looking for help when we are unwell. 9. Practicing mindfulness and acceptance. Other things that can help you is living in the moment and accepting that all feelings are temporary. Try to meditate, focus on your breath, or do anything else that helps you to keep focused in the present. 10. Focus on our growth mindset. Lastly, we need to start seeing our failures as learning opportunities. They are not a reflection of your worth, they are a reflection of how much potential you can still explore. I hope by now you realize how complex feeling unworthy can be. Unfortunately, doing all its possible origins is not an easy fix. And I don't mean to say what Jinwoo went through was easy, but if you think about it, it was quick compared to weeks, months, or even years reframing our thoughts, changing our mindset and lifestyle, and even investing on therapy. But make sure to remind yourself that besides not being easy or possibly quick, it's definitely possible. When we feel like we are not good enough, we can be missing out a lot of good things in life, so it's definitely a reflection. On our intro, we also mentioned the feeling of never being there. I must confess that the older I get, the more I realize this there is no place, is no state. This bloody there, as hard as it can be to understand, it's simply the progress of getting better day by day. So make sure to take easy on yourself and try to follow some of these tips if you find them useful. That's it for today's video. If you heard something relevant, please support the channel with your like and subscribe. If you think this video can help someone else, please share. If you feel like it, check out the form on my description, and I'll see you next time.